coming right there.
All right, welcome back to another week of Tactical Rifleman videos. So what we have this week for you is really cool new stuff. So we've brought in our good friend Ross and Christoph from Tactical Performance Center, and we're working on kind of a new concept that essentially what we're going to do today is Rawson's going to teach me this new concept that is called predictive shooting. So Rawson, what do you have for us this week? How are you going to make me suck less?
We'll unsuck you right now. So there are a lot of discussions about the term, what is reactive shooting, what is predictive shooting. We kind of introduced one more concept that we call the proprioceptive shooting. And again, don't stick with terms too much. We'll give you just our vision about what we consider predictive shooting in TPC. The idea of that series of exercises that we'll do right now will be to first make your gun behave more cyclical.
Oh, you mean predictable?
Very predictable. Exactly. That's the idea. That's why we call it predictive shooting. Again, the idea is to make the gun behave very cyclical, exactly the same each and every time. After every shot, it will land at exactly the same spot, without surprises. And then we'll learn how to predict the second shot instead of confirming the sights.
In brief, we define reactive shooting as the process where the shooter recognizes a good enough sight picture for each follow-up shot, based on the acceptable margin of error. In other words, the size of the target area they aim to hit. The shooter visually confirms the required alignment between the front and rear sights, if using iron sights, or observes the necessary pause of the dot if utilizing a reflex sighting system. This visual confirmation serves as the trigger to fire the next shot if needed. Essentially, the shooter reacts to the stimulus of sight picture confirmation. The required sight picture may range from perfect alignment and focus to a flash confirmation using the peripheral vision recognizing the top of the slide of the gun in the effective target area, depending on the target's difficulty. We define predictive shooting as the shooter's ability to time and predict when the alignment will be good enough without requiring a physical cause in that alignment. Imagine a bouncing ball. Based on the cyclical repetition of its motion, you can foresee when the ball will touch the floor. Similarly, if the shooter has developed a consistent grip that ensures the gun's cyclical behavior under recoil, he can predict the moment of sight alignment.
So essentially what we're discussing here is once you have most of your fundamentals worked up, right, and committed for the most part to your subconscious, which is an everlasting project, right? You're just always building on top of it.
Never-ending process. Never-ending process.
But once you have your core skills pretty much decent, now you can start seeing how your gun's behaving and the whole thing. What I really want to stress here for everybody else to understand, it's not just about running the drill. It's about being very conscious every time. You could do the same drill over and over, but every time you're focusing on a different thing, right? And so that's really the key factor here. All right.
Exactly. The idea is what actually make a difference between a good shooter and a really great shooter, really an expert, is to pay attention on the small details that really matters. So again, it looks like a very simple exercise, but the perception of that, what you can actually learn from it, it's the essential here. So we'll dissect everything step by step. All right, the target that we're going to use, we call it the cross of truth. Why?
Cross of truth.
Because it keeps you quite honest. You can download it on our website, the TPC website, tacticalperformancecenter.com. But most likely we can attach the link in the description below. That target will show you the behavior of the gun after the recovery, after the muzzle flip and recoil. And that can tells you what you need to adjust. So basically we're using that target to micro adjust our grip and our stance to a degree to achieve that very repeatable behavior of the gun.
So essentially what you're saying is that the target itself, what it's helping you do is track that dot and see if it's staying in the gray zones or if it's kind of migrating off to the sides or low or high during and after recoil.
Exactly. And also, based to the TPC reactive shooting error chart, you can see if the gun is returning, let's say, down, or it's returning a little bit to the left or right. You will find the answer in that reactive error chart, and you kind of tune and eliminate the deficiency of your grip at that point. If the sights recover high after the recoil, there are two possible reasons. First, your center of gravity may not be forward enough. Try leaning slightly forward. Second, it could be due to insufficient wrist stiffness. Focus on stiffening your wrist more. They will naturally recover the gun back to alignment. If the sights recover inconsistently or erratically, it's likely due to grip pressure. In this case, focus on gripping the gun harder and maintaining consistent pressure. If the sights dip down after the recoil, it's caused by anticipation. Allow the gun to settle back into alignment naturally by accepting the recoil instead of trying to control it prematurely. Finally, if your hits are low and left for right-handed shooters, this indicates poor trigger control. Focus on isolating the movement of your trigger finger and pull the trigger with less effort. So exercise number one, you draw your gun. You have all the time to establish a proper grip. Pay attention on everything, proper pressure, proper position of the hands, how much pressure with your control hand, how much pressure with your shooting hand. You need to feel absolutely comfortable. Okay. From there, you position your red dot or your alignment of the sights exactly in the middle of that cross of truth. So you see the light gray spot. It's exactly where you want to place your red dot at your case right now, right? Sure. Or alignment of iron sights. Okay. You break one shot. Now, at the moment that you establish the pressure of the grip and all the biomechanics behind the grip, let the gun do its own thing and allow it to settle down by itself. So whatever stops, stops. Observe and see, is it to the left, is it to the right, up and down, according to that center spot for crosshair. And then we're using the error chart to see what we need to change in order to break the gun to return exactly in the center. All right, let's look.
Knocking's on.
No rush, just observe. Let recoil happen. Let the gun settle by itself. Raise returning. Stop.
Same place.
Same place. That on. Let's repeat it several more times.
Slightly high.
Slightly high. So if it's slightly high, if you look at that error chart, we'll see that.
By the way, what we're referring to is the dot went up, came down, and it landed a little bit higher.
Exactly. So or wrist stiffness, or you took upright with your shooting stance, shooting platform. So stiffen your wrist a little bit more. Let the recoil happen where it settles.
Just at the top of the square.
All right, awesome. Let's do it one more time, and then we'll proceed with the second exercise. How is that?
Came down, same thing, top of the square.
All right, good, good, very consistent. Now, most likely, you'll come up from the holster, right, in actual situation. So what we'll do right now, we'll do exactly the same drill, but now come from the holster, make sure you're actually establishing the same grip. The idea of that second exercise is to see if your grip is efficient when it's coming from the holster. And again, we're repeating the same exercise, right, to achieve that same effect. So you see the shot was slightly high.
That was high. Yep.
Make sure that you have the visual patience. You fire the shot when you see that dot in the middle of that light gray area. Beautiful. Where's that dot return?
Came down a little bit low. I guess I was fighting it maybe a little bit.
Yeah, so you're trying to intentionally bring the gun back down, concerning that you want to make sure that you'll fire the second shot fast enough instead of letting the gun to do its own thing and settle back by itself. That's the idea. We need to exclude everything that is proactive, right? Because human factor will lead to inconsistency. When you set that biomechanical efficiency there, it's like a device. Just trust your biomechanics. Let the gun returning by itself.
Getting back to the same place.
All right, let's repeat it a couple more times. Right. One more time. Accept the rig. So you see the shot was
Now trigger. I felt it. Pushed it.
Good. Again, that target keeps you honest. You spot a lack of isolation of the trigger finger. Now, the most important thing, never finish with a bad repetition. So emphasize it again, burn it down in your subconscious mind how you need to do it, because the subconscious mind will remember your last repetition.
What I felt there that went wrong was a lot of pressure on my shooting hand and not enough on my control hand.
All right, we need to reverse that. More pressure with your control hand, relax a little bit the shooting hand to achieve a better trigger isolation. That off. When the dot returns back in the center.
At the same place.
Awesome. So the drill number 3 will draw from the holster. You'll fire the first shot. We'll let the gun to settle by itself. And if you confirm the dot is exactly in that light gray area, so it's returning on the same spot, you will fire the second shot. Now, if it's not returning there, you cancel that repetition. You look at the error chart. You change what you need to change, find the solution, and repeat the exercise until you achieve that desired effect. That's right. All right, it settles back. The shot went a little bit to the left, and that's a trigger. So, because you're thinking more about to deliver that second shot sooner, you're adding more effort with the second trigger pull. Now, just focus to keep the same effort. The first and the second shot, same amount of effort. Let the gun to do its own thing. Excellent. Let's do it again. All right, the second shot is dead on. The first one was a little bit to the left again. Less effort with that shooting hand. Relax a little bit the pressure there. Of course. All right, one more time. Compensate with more tension of the control hand, left hand. Beautiful. Beautiful. And the last repetition. Look at that tight spot, the light. Perfect. All right. So what we achieve right now, it's a very cyclical behavior of the gun, right? It's exactly the same. It settles back by itself, very cyclical. Now it's very predictable, right?
It's becoming predictable. I know exactly where it's going to go. As long as I feel that I got a good grip. So what I did there is I slowed down my presentation a little bit to make sure my control hand grip was exactly where I wanted it. And then it becomes very predictable. What I notice is sometimes when I rush, I have a little bit of a gap here between my trigger finger on my control hand and my middle finger here, and then that's where things go out the window.
So this is where you can polish that in exercise number 2, and you have a single shot coming from the holster. Make sure that the grip is very, very repetitive, exactly the same each and every time. So you're working on consistency of your grip at that point. That will lead to confidence in execution of the drill. Now, we are ready to predict that second shot. That means you're looking at that light gray spot there, and you'll follow your red dot with peripheral vision. the brain will perceive it as a streak. So at the moment that streak is about to close that area, the light gray area, you predict when that dot is about to enter that area without confirming. Imagine a bouncing ball.
I'm not waiting for it to settle.
Exactly.
As it gets closer, I'm already beginning that next trigger pull.
Exactly. Imagine a bouncing ball, right? You can predict where that ball will hit the ground based on the very repetitive behavior of the ball. It's exactly the same with the red dot. When you're using the iron sights, we will just predict when that front sight will get to alignment without confirming that alignment. That's why we call it predictable. So let's give it a try right now. It's a small target, but you see how that will accelerate the speed of engagement. Absolutely. Let's go.
Slay bad trigger pull on that second one.
Exactly. Down left, clear indication of a lack of isolation. Beautiful. Nice. One more time. Beautiful. If you want to accelerate the second shot,
I'm still leaning left there.
and that's only because of isolation of the trigger foot. Go to the left, you're adding a little bit more effort on the trigger pull that is not necessary on that one. But again, the entire series of exercises is to micro-tune your core skills. Now, if you want to accelerate the control pair, instead of forcing the gun down, you simply need to focus to stiffen your wrist a little bit passively. So remember that effect of a spring still, you just have more stiff spray. That's the idea. When the wrists are more stiff, that will bring the gun faster to alignment without you doing something extra. Let's give it a try. Focus on the process, not on the result. Process. Here we go. Only finger move and gently. Wait until you see that red dot in the middle of that black light gray area. Look at that light gray area. One more time. Gentle piggy pull. So the second one down, that means you turn the gut intentionally.
Dot, I watched it. The dot settled right where it needed to be, and it was all trigger.
Yeah, gentle. Reset and prep meanwhile, so you have your homework done. That was badass. Holy ho.
One more.
Beautiful. Nicely done. So that's the little series of exercises that will lead to the desired effect. And now, the most important thing is when you have something challenging like this, and still you need to hit it with reasonable time. The little trick that the subconscious mind is playing with our brain is you always start to focus more on the result. I need to engage it fast. I need to place 2 hits there really fast. At the moment that you're concerned on the result, you're not aware about the process. So you need to stay in the very present, stay focused only on the process, and we'll build that process gradually here with that series of exercises. Ignore totally the result. The result will be consequence of a perfectly executed process, right? That's the idea here. That's the little trick. It's a mind game. All right, the last exercise right now will put everything together. Now, instead of that cross here that we have the cross of truth, we have actual target, acceptable margin of error. It's not going to be a big one. It's a 2-inch circle at 7 yards, which is a pretty challenging target. But we have also a brighter, smaller circle inside, within. The idea is to, again, narrow your focus and you stare. I want you to narrow your focus on that light gray area. Let the peripheral vision to just follow that streak, you're looking at that gray area.
The vision, my focus is staying on the target, and the peripheral vision should be tracking the
Correct.
dot.
This is when you're shooting a red dot, right? If you're shooting iron sights, you need to back up the focus a bit until you recognize a proper alignment. You need some information.
Or essentially, my eye goes forward, back to the front sight, right? Bang, and then it's going to be just a little bit ahead of the front sight, so I get adequate sight pictures. Is that correct?
Exactly. Adequate sight picture. Make sure you have enough information about the front sight in relation with the rear sight not. And that can vary with the different shooters, different way that the brain can have a perception about that. So just play and find what it's a good enough focus for you that will do the job for you. It's not necessary to stay in the boxes, right? If it's that, we need to look that, or if it's far away, we need to look all the way to the front sight. It's very individual. So with a red dot, you need to keep your focus on the target and actually create a imaginary spot that it's smaller within that desired area that you want to engage.
Got it.
So that's what we have. We have a visual representation here, just to make the things a little bit easier for you. Let's do it. So draw 2 shots predictively. That's the idea, to be predictive. See how we'll go there. Okay. Excellent. Bouncing ball. That's what to see out that the brain will have a perception of a bouncing ball. There's no confirmation of that.
I'm confirming the first before the first shot, and then I'm just
you're timing the second one, right? Without confirmation.
Right.
Let's do it one more time.
oh, missed that first one.
All right. Hey, mistake is it's not a failure if you spot what went wrong and you know how to fix it.
Added pressure to the left hand a little bit late.
All right. Let's do it right.
Full hand.
Excellent. Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right. Well, I learned a lot, right? What I learned wasn't so much, how to pull the trigger. Of course, I was making mistakes with the trigger, making mistakes with the grip, but correcting those along the way. The most important thing here, to me, at least today, is where I'm visually focused, right? So I'm visually focused on kind of with peripherally tracking that dot, making sure it ends up where I want it. And then we can start predicting exactly where it's going to end up. So super valuable lesson to me, Rosalind. Thank you. Every time I train with you, brother, I learn so much.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's a never-ending process, right? You always can improve your understanding about the core skills. We don't call them basics because they're core. They're so important. And through that predictive shooting, we can accelerate the speed of engagement, even on a target that was over 30 yards away, right? We're shooting with a splits between the shots relatively the same as we engaging the target at about 10 yards. So it's not about the difficulty of the target. It's more about the awareness, perception of your brain and your vision, obviously, and how well you can isolate that core skills that we are talking about. How consistent is your grip, how well you can isolate the trigger finger. And at that point, you don't need to stick in the box. You can always strive to accelerate and to engage the target faster, to have more control over it. But the most important thing is to develop that subconscious competence, the ability to make it right, to perform right, the things correctly without thinking about it. So later, when you do it in a real situation, under stress, in a more combat orientated environment, you are able to do all these core skills correctly without even thinking about
Subconscious.
and that will open more space for a tactical assessment and to take the right decisions.
Brother, thanks again. Always have fun. And you guys, we'll see you guys next week.
If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.